Joining us to have this conversation this morning is Omo'Ba Adefunke Jayesimi. She's a communication expert. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you live with us in the studio.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Right. Good morning to you again.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. You know, this morning we're talking about something, hardship, connecting it to human rights and economic development. And just for better understanding, some people might say, oh, how does hardship relate to human rights? How does the hardship relate to economic development? Just give us a brief understanding of the connection between these two.
Okay, so let me start from hardship itself. Hardship itself is relative because your definition of good might not be my definition of good.
Yeah.
And when we speak about human rights and what's the other thing?
Economic development.
Economic development. I think that as citizens of any place you find yourself, you have a right to a good space.
Mm-hmm.
I said good space because I don't want to define it the way you might want to have it because, like I said earlier, everything is relative. Hardship, human rights. The truth is, you have a right to life, but you don't have a right to how life treats you. Yeah, you don't have a right to how life treats you. You only have a right to reshape what life brings to you. So when you talk about human rights, you can go to your constitution, what your government says is yours, what you think is yours. But at the end of the day, you are the architect of your own life, and right. You actually define whether it's your right to excel in Nigeria, excel outside Nigeria, or just be there waiting to justify human rights.
Right. You know, there are so many rights that before now, they used to be quite accessible to Nigerians, and even our leaders, those that are still here and those that have left, benefited from some of this rights. Access to free education, free water, health care, and what have you. Now, but with the current economic situation, how do you think this current economic hardship has directly impacted the realization of basic human rights, such as access to education, health care, housing, to mention a few?
Okay, I think that we should first understand that life itself is a journey. Our opportunity to be citizens of this country, yes, we don't have a right to it, maybe by birth or by migration or something, but it's a journey. We didn't get here now. Things didn't happen overnight. Yes, there's hardship in the land. As a matter of fact, you can't even say that you are not seeing what's happening in Nigeria, no matter how wealthy you think you are or how good, how well things are going for you. But the reality is we need to look at how we got here. What was the population at the time you were talking about? What was the representation like? What authorities do people have at the time? At the time you were talking, we had government of various arms, but it wasn't really like what it is now. We had a leadership style that empowers both political and traditional. So as a matter of fact, within your constituency, beyond who is representing you, there are local people that you have direct access to that know everybody within their terrain that they can talk about. I can go to a LG school in Shagamu, and I mean, the principal can know me to my family. There are access to things that we could benefit from because we could control the population and we have access to everybody at the time. The population is increasing. Things can never be the way it was in the past. We can only have a better life. We can only hope that things get better. But trust me, it can never be what it used to be.
Right.
Education is not cheap. Let me go there. Education is not cheap. Education did not start deteriorating yesterday. You and I, directly or indirectly, influenced that. I'm an 80s child, and I remember back then, Montessori schools were a thing. Like, you needed a proper structure to own a Montessori school. But now, anybody can rent a 3-bedroom flat and start a school. And every of your head teachers back then had a private school in their family house. We were all applauding it. Nobody wanted to go to federal government, nursery and primary school anymore. Everybody wanted to identify with what school does your child go to. Everybody wanted to wear a different uniform on Monday, Tuesday. So we sort of empowered it. And this is our reality now. You can't scrap it. What we can do is better regulations for this thing. You talk about healthcare. Talking about healthcare, maybe growing up, I grew up in Surulere, Randu precisely. I know that I have direct access to the general hospital at the time. At the time, the population then wasn't even what it is now. I would go to Randu. I remember having an accident as a child. I think I broke my hand at 5. We were done in about 1 hour. But now the population is high. When you talk about population, the population you will see in Randu is different from what you will see in the village health center in my village in LA in Ogun State. So when you want to justify what is right or wrong, we need to look at the space, how we got there, and what we can do differently. So let's define it first. What are we justifying? Healthcare in my village, healthcare in a populated state.
All right, so in response to this now, how can the federal government, how can civil organizations or private organizations, how can they balance, economic growth? Or what are the effective ways they can use to apply to balance economic growth side by side with the protection of human rights?
I'm still trying to separate this conversation from human rights, because violation of human rights is not really what is affecting our economy. As much as people will say things are going this way, there are a lot of people that are celebrating wins too. So for me, I think that the economic reforms that are currently going on are taking a huge toll on the citizens, and that's the fact. But we know what it is. It's easier for anybody to sit down and say something. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he led the protest against Goodluck Jonathan's administration back then, might have thought that, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. I will do this when I get there. It's easy for you to have a full-time job as an opposition until you get into that space. So for me, I'm not a person that, I'm not one to justify what should be from what the government is doing. You would always make ends meet if you want to achieve something. Right. I mean, people travel out of Nigeria to do all sorts just to live. What we have here is systems problem. Once that system problem is solved, there will be a lot of reforms, both in economic, in healthcare, education, and all. It's a people problem. We are Nigerians, and we are the problem of Nigeria. If we don't resolve, if we don't get better as citizens, I don't think that there's anything that the federal government that can do that will totally eradicate what Nigerians are going through as hardships.
Let me interrupt you for a bit. Now, you said something that the current president protested against the previous president. And I don't recall any form of arrest or any form of charge as treason or what have you at the time. Now, I'm not disputing the fact that there were some places where protests have happened this year where things were vandalized, especially in Kano State. Fast forward to 2024, I'm trying to connect this to human rights. We have a right to protest, to air our voice, in as much as it's peaceful. We saw Nigerians who are hungry and tired of the situation come out to protest. This is something that the current president has done before when he was not in office. To protest, and they were arrested. Peaceful protesters were arrested, and some of them were charged with treason, and we know the penalty for that. Some were slammed humongous fees as bail, which is unrealistic. So that is some sort of infringement on their human right. And this stemmed up from the economic hardship that they are facing. So why do we have such stifling of people's human rights in this current period when back then it was not a problem to protest? Even the president protested.
Okay, so if you talk about protests, let's take it from when it happened then. That protest happened in Lagos State. Goodluck Jonathan was in Abuja. That protest lasted for a few days, had attendance of the high and mighty at the time, and it was peaceful. There was no disruption of life, property, or anything. There was nobody that was forced to do anything. At this time, there's a protest, and you call it peaceful protest, where you are at the protest ground.
I would like to also state that I stated specifically that there were certain locations where it turned violent. But if we're going to bring it to Lagos, the areas that they held in Lagos, because they were confined to certain locations, it was a peaceful protest.
I'm still insisting if you were at the protest.
I wasn't at the protest.
So whoever was arrested, because we have a lot of people at the protest, and we have people still breathing fine.
Yeah.
They were not all arrested. So whoever was arrested must have been arrested for specific reasons.
I beg to disagree.
And yeah, it's totally fine. This is journalism, but as much as we want to talk to the people, we have, I'm very, very particular about the authenticity of whatever I want to say here.
Okay.
If people were arrested, if they were supposed, if they feel like their human rights were infringed, there are a lot of human rights lawyers out there. There are people that will even do it pro bono. There are people that were arrested during NSAS, they were released. There are stories that came up, they were debunking.
A lot of them are still in detention.
There are people that were released. That's why I put the specification. There are people that are released. A lot of people are in detention. How many people have gone to these cells to visit those people that are still in detention, to hear their true story, to know what got there and all? That is not what I'm here to discuss this morning. The issue right here is, when you talk about human rights, you have to also be able to educate the people on responsibility of citizenship. You cannot do what you want affecting what I want. And I think that Nigerians need to change the mentality, like, if it is not this way, there's no other way. What makes us humans is our diversity in thoughts, opinions, as much as even ideas, and our choices. So the fact that you feel that, oh, they did something in 2000 and whatever, this happened, the choice of the president at the time, he didn't feel any threat at the time. There were no security challenges as much as what we have at this time. And following what happened during the NSAS issue in Lagos State, there's no government that will sit back and watch citizens destroyed what taxpayers' money has been used for. So it is totally fine to put things in place as much as you respect their rights as citizens.
When you say put things in place, was that the approach that they should have taken in putting things in place, even though till now they have debunked the activities that took place that day?
I was going to respond to that, actually, because when you said, is that the activity, I was going to tell you that, where are the facts? If the government said this didn't happen, so who am I to come and say that this happened?
So
I wasn't there.
What we saw play out, people were on live. People were live.
Yeah, I joined that live.
People were injured.
Yeah.
We had people share their testimonies after.
People were alleged. Yes, it's journalism.
Okay. How would you respond
I wasn't there.
to the panel that was set up in Lagos and the recommendations they made?
The recommendations they made and the dragging that followed them 2 weeks ago for who collected money and who has not collected money.
And the compensation.
And the compensation of who spoke for the people and who used the people to get into office. See, citizenship is funny. Human rights is, everything in life is relative. As a matter of fact, whatever you want to define in life is based on your personal experience. There is no justification of any conversation without an iota of bias in it. And that is the truth. Talk about hardship. I will tell you that Nigerians have a lot to deal with. The government has, they were in a time where the government should sit back, relax, and as a matter of fact, readjust even the cost of governance. That is totally understandable. You cannot tell the people to consistently be patient. You cannot tell the people to consistently hope for the renewal of the hope that they will not even see without you making some adjustments. But while at that, you cannot just come and want to change the narrative of things that has been in place overnight. It's a journey. It's going to take a while. What can we do differently is what we should be asking the government, not going out there looking for a way to just bring down the government at all costs. I was listening, I was watching when you had the other guest on the show talking about what happened with Super Eagles in Libya. And it's so crazy that Nigerians are dealing with so much at the time that we don't even want to be patriotic anymore. I mean, Nigerians just want to hand everything to this government. Oh, they treated us this way because we are not this, we are not that. We never come to talk about Nigerians that are excelling, making the country proud. We never want to talk about people that have become models, even to people that are not Nigerians. We just always want to look for the best time and the best way to maybe to talk about our country in the wrong way. It's not going to yield anything. Positivity, negativity will not yield anything. It's only going to make you either sad or happy. So you define what you want to do.
Right. You know, just as we're preparing to wrap up, what are some of the, or how can we utilize economic development programs better to support marginalized groups who face this economic hardship? I know that everybody's facing it, right? But there are some sectors, they call them maybe the vulnerable or the marginalized group or what have you. How can we come up with economic programs that can better support these people?
I don't think we should even call anybody the vulnerable group at this time. We're all vulnerable as it is right now.
Yeah.
We're all going through a lot is going through a lot of people. And the truth is, I would say that...
Let me hold your thought for a bit. We have a call. We have Jide from Ikoyi, if I got that correctly. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Yes, this is Jide from Ikoyi.
Thank you, Jide. Please share your thoughts.
Okay, please. Okay. The woman, I think she's not nailing the question, because she said people that are making Nigeria proud. Like, is it the government that, what has the government done for it? Like, what impact has the government taken in order for them to, achieve the success they've achieved so far? I think she's not, there are some things she's not telling us. Maybe she's supporting the government, or I don't understand. Please, we are going through a lot, and the hardship is so big that people cannot even feed themselves this day. So I don't understand what she's saying and trying to cover something. So
Thank you, Jide.
All right, thank you
want to
for
respond to
calling.
that?
Of course, thank you for calling, Jide. I'm not trying to cover anything up. I am only responding to the questions. And truth is, when questions are set, even in examination, you would only respond based on the knowledge of what you have. I cannot speak for everybody. I can only speak from my perspective. And like I said earlier, no matter what is happening in the country, I am an advocate of rediscovery, self-realization, what you can do for yourself. I'm never a person of things are going down, we're all down. No.
But Jide said something that you talked about Nigerians that are excelling.
He or she decided to pick it from me talking about Nigerians that are excelling. We got there from talking about what happened in Libya and how we are not being patriotic. And I said, if we always have to look for the opportunity to cast this country down, then we are not going to do good for ourselves. What about the people that are making, that's how we got there. I didn't come here to praise the country. And as a matter of fact, a lot of us, maybe the 60s, 70s, 80s generation, cannot even say they did not benefit from the benevolence of these things we have talked about. Things got worse.
Right. You know, earlier, before Jide called, I was asking about economic development programs, and you mentioned that everybody is vulnerable, right?
Yeah, because I really wanted to throw that jota or that note out, that some people are vulnerable, the poorest of the poorest. I don't believe in that. Yeah. Whatever you're going to give to the people at the point where we are in right now, where we are in Nigeria right now, should be for everybody, initiatives that everybody can benefit from, in incentives, palliatives, and all. But speaking of the economy reforms, the truth is, when you roll out policies to effect change, there is every possibility that it's going to be a guesswork.
Okay.
Because until something is put into work, you don't know the exact result that might come out of it. And that is the reality. Like I said earlier, where I have a problem is when you feel like we're all dealing with this, and you are not in any way adjusting your house to say, okay, we're in this together. That's a big problem. There's a problem. What is the government, what are those in the corridor of power doing to empathize with Nigeria to say, oh, we are in this together? That is where I have a problem. But that policies, policies affecting the people and how we can reach out to everyone, subsidy is gone. We all going to deal with it. Dangote is producing, it's going to be a roller coaster. We are not going to get it straight right now. I'm sure whatever Tinubu was saying pre-election, even himself right now, if you have access to him, I'm sure he didn't see this coming. Right. But regardless, it's going to be a work in progress.
Okay. Now, before we go, maybe in less than a minute or two, I'd like to ask you this question. How can, or do you believe that economic development and human rights policy, or human rights itself, can beat the odds? Now, specifically looking at human rights, I like to quote, this time around, you were talking, when you were referring to Sarah, you were asking her whether she has evidence. So I'm talking from Deji Adeyanju's statement, when he said that, the federal government, they are used to go after protesters, but they have not been able to arrest a former governor who's been Yahaya Bello. Now, he has also talked about end bad governance protesters who have been charged treason. Now, looking at the charging a protester for treason, that is a capital crime, which we receive the capital punishment. So, do you think that human rights in Nigeria can actually beat the odds? Looking at how the federal government are going after protesters and how they are going about things in Nigeria.
Well, what's the emphasis on going about after protesters?
Yes, because when we talk about protest, a lot of Nigerians are unfavorably disposed to going for protest because they think of, oh, I might be picked up. Parents are telling their children, do not go out for protest.
And those are the parents that have children that they thought would go out. It's funny how young Nigerians feel like everybody thinks the way they think. As a matter of fact, as much as you have the loudest or the noisiest talking about how they just want to change things overnight, there are a larger population that is not as noisy as they are, that still believe in the process of achieving results without being on the streets.
How so?
The streets, what has the streets ever changed? Tell me.
So what are the other channels available to air your views?
Communicate properly. Engage in community development. You have representation at the house. See, pre-election, I used to tell people that if people pay attention to people going to the House of Representatives, the Senate, the State House, the way they pay attention to who become governors and presidents, Nigeria will be a better state. Okay. For me, I would rather hold Lanre Okunola, that's the man representing me in Surulere constituencies too. I would rather attend town hall meetings, engage him, see what he's doing. It is so sad that there are headlines that we pick out there that will naturally make you angry. Okay. Because that is what you're saying. But if you have people, if you have put people in position that you can question them, you can talk to them, there will be a difference. We talk about the cost of governance. I was talking about it earlier. This present administration has the most, I think this is, let's call it concussion our assembly. We have different political parties, people that we never even expected would be opportune. They are all in the house now. But nothing has changed when it comes to the cost of running this government. Because maybe when they get there, or maybe after they swear that oath, there's just something that comes over them. So why are we not talking about these things? We have the most diversified house ever. Why are there no members speaking the heart of the Nigerian people? We are not going to change anything by thinking that me and you standing in Ojota are out there for the same reason. I might go to Ojota with you because I want to make headlines so that they can call me from Abuja for appointments tomorrow. I can use everybody on my streets to call against the government because I need to seek attention. We've seen this happen over and over again. We've seen activists become whatever. We've seen comrades smiling in and out of government offices. So what exactly should we be doing right now? I think it's a personal thing. Identify who your representatives are. Engage them. Let us start investing in calling back these people. If this is not going to come easy, it's not going to happen in 4 years, it's not going to happen in 8 years. But when there's a consistent attempt at making sure things are in place, things will be done differently. You don't have a representative not speaking your heart where they should speak it, and you are here crying about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We know what the payment has been for even allocations going to states and all since this administration started. Nobody wants to hold their government beyond those that want to hold Sanwo-Olu or hold maybe Rivers State, that's another big state, or Delta State. If the 36 states of Nigeria is working the way it should work, if Ogun State is working the way it should work, I mean, if Dapo Abiodun is really blowing my mind, I would have relocated from Lagos back to Shagamu.
Right. You know, that's an entirely large conversation we're getting into, but we cannot continue because we have run out of time. But we would definitely love to have you again, Omo'Ba, Adefunke, Jayesimi, to have more conversations on this. But it's been a delight. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you
for sharing your thoughts with us. That was a conversation with Omo'Ba, Adefunke, Jayesimi, talking about the hardship in the country, connecting it to human rights and economic development.